Well, good morning. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to be doing the rally again. I love doing this stuff. But I need to keep it short, so I'm just going to get right into it. So there's no fancy intro today. So I realized that I sometimes have an issue of just kind of always saying yes to everything. Everything, whether I'm called to do it, whether I'm good at it or not. Is there anyone else who kind of has that issue? The yes man, you wanna make everyone happy. Oh, I am so happy it's not just me. So then there is also a flip side of that spectrum there, where you would see an issue, see a problem, and just be like, "That's not my problem. I'm just gonna walk over here and pretend I didn't see that." Is there anyone? No, don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. That's okay. So there's a space in between those two extremes because those are kind of both the extreme ends of the spectrum. Say yes to everything, say no to everything. So there's a space in between, and that space in between is you do what God is calling you to do. And that seems kind of obvious, right? It's like, oh yeah, no duh. Well, we're going to look at some scripture real quick where that wasn't exactly the easiest choice, but someone made it anyway. So if we can put the first line of scripture in there. We're going to be looking at 1 Kings chapter 17. So a little bit of context before we fully go into it. I know, fancy, huh? So Elijah is a prophet, and he basically just got done telling this king that he was awful and there's going to be a huge drought because of how awful he is. And the king just kept being awful. So the drought came. And so we're hot off a real drought. And this is not a California drought. This isn't the drought where it's like, yeah, you can use water and water your plants, but just kind of, don't use too much. This is like you turn on the faucet, nothing comes out. You go to get, from the well, nothing is there. There is no water, so there's no crops, no anything. People are starving, so it's a big deal. So going into the scripture here, it's, "Then the Lord said to Elijah, 'Go and live in the village of Zarephath near Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you.' So he went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks. And he asked her, 'Would you please bring me a little water and a cup?'" Yeah, next one. As she was going to get it, he called to her and said, "Bring me a bit of bread, too." On the next one. And she responded by saying, "I swear by the Lord your God that I do not have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar, and a little bit of cooking oil at the bottom of the jug, and I was going to gather a few sticks so I can cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die." So I'm going to pause right there for a second because I just absolutely love how extra this widow is. She's just like, "I swear by the Lord your God." Modern day translation is, "I swear to God, I don't have anything for you." And then she was just like, "We're going to go cook one last meal, and we're just going to go die." She is just at the end of her rope there. So if we keep reading, Elijah responds by saying, "Don't be afraid. Go ahead and just do what you've said, but make a little bit of bread for me first, and then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and your son." Next one. "For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be enough flour and oil, olive oil, left in your containers until the time comes when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again." So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. There was enough flour and olive oil left in the containers, just as the Lord promised through Elijah. So, through a situation that this widow did not cause, she was put in a situation where she and her son were just prepared to die because there is a famine and there is no food. And Elijah comes up and says, "Hey, I want you to step out in faith for a minute and feed me first before you feed yourself and your son." This was going to be her and her son's last meal, possibly the last good memory before they died. So that was a big leap to say yes. But God was calling her to do it. Let's look at a couple scenarios here. So the first scenario is the doer, the yes man. So the first one would be, "Oh, I'll have enough supplies until the drought ends. I'm going to feed the whole village. I'm going to feed everyone." Who wouldn't want to do that? But the thing is that's not quite what God was calling her to do. God had a different plan for every obedient one in the village. That was not her plan. So there's also the opposite end of the spectrum over here, where she could have just said, no. Good luck with your God thing. Like, hopefully you find some food over there. Yeah, I'm just going to go take care of my son, and we're just going to have one last hoorah, and then, we'll just go die. Good luck with your God thing. But no, she listened, and she obeyed. And because she did that, she was blessed. So remember that little space in between I was talking about? That's where she was. She was doing what God was calling her to do, even though it was hard. So I want to bring this back a little bit into modern day life here. We can, as volunteers of the church, as Christ followers, we can go and try to feed everyone. We can say yes to literally everything and never take a break, and then we can get burnt out. And then we can not want to serve anymore, or even worse, possibly resent the church for not looking out for us. Or we can be on the opposite end of the spectrum and just ignore what God is calling us to do. But there's a space in between where we are called to be. And that space in between is we do what God has charged us to do. And if we do that, we will always have enough to get through it. One interesting thing about the scripture here is it didn't say that the widow got a new jar and a new jug that was way bigger. It was the same jar and jug that she's always used. And when she was called by God to do her job and she did it, that same jar and jug didn't run dry. So modern day, we can look, the same personality we have, the same amount of energy we have, the same skills we have. When we're doing what God has called us to do, it will always be enough. We might think, I feel called to do this, but I don't think I'm adequate. I don't think I have the skills to do it. Guess what? You do. You do. God has called you to do it, and he will provide what you need always if you are obedient. And so there's some good news here. The good news is that this is an amazing church. We have amazing volunteers, and I am positive that everyone here has a charge from God, and you are all fulfilling it here. I'm sure of it. There's no way we would be where we are right now if it wasn't for Christ called volunteers like you guys. You guys are amazing. So the good news is that looking at this story, it's in the Bible for a reason. You will always have enough. Even when times seem hard, even when it seems tired, you will always have enough until the rain comes. So I want you guys to say something with me real quick. I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to say it a second time, and I want you guys to repeat after me. Your jar and your jug will be enough until the rain comes. All right. We all memorize that, right? All right. Let's say it. Everyone, we're going to say it together. Your jar and your jug will be enough until the rain comes. If you don't remember anything from Rally from today, I want you to remember that. If you don't remember Zarephath and Sidon and Elijah and the widow and the son who ended up dying later, but because she was obedient, Elijah was able to raise him back to life. That's another crazy story. But if you don't remember anything, just remember your jar and your jug will be enough until the rain comes. And I believe as a church, we will always have full jars and full jugs. Always. So I never get to do this, but I'm going to invite the band up. I'm always the one walking up. And then I'm going to invite Austin up to close us out in prayer.